this is probably one of the most important questions so far today. So remember earlier I said when you're doing your initial feasibility back of the envelope, due diligence, the first thing you want to look at is what's the appetite of the municipality? What's the sentiment of the community? Are they going to be on board with my project? So you need to make sure that the community is going to be on board with what you're doing, and you want to. So we serve, right? We're solving problems, we're creating opportunities, we're serving others. That's what developers do. We're serving a need, which ultimately is a need of people. So everything boils down to people. It's all about relationships. So you need to understand, what that looks like, and then, what are your options, based on that. So if they're for it, great. If they're not, do you want to go down that road and pick that fight? Because, if you have community opposition or, municipal opposition to your project, it's going to be an uphill battle. And there's land use attorneys and all that. So that's number one. Number two is you never go by what somebody says. You always get what they're referring to. So if the engineer says that, okay, well, that's your opinion. That's great. But where's the zoning code that shows that we can get this approved? Where are you seeing this in the code? Same thing with your county official. If he says, they're not going to approve this, well, what does the code say? Because all they can do is go by what the code says, right? You have a zoning code. So the question is, what does that code say? And you're going to get opinions from people in planning because their job is to plan a community in their vision. Now there's going to be a master development plan or, comprehensive plan or whatever that some of these, municipalities have created and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on to say, we want this community to look like this. And, they're going to have different planning districts and different, things, but you'll get individuals in a planning department that are very opinionated and they're going to tell you what they think or what they want or what they see. But that doesn't mean that's what's actually reality. Doesn't mean it's what the code says. Doesn't mean it's what the other board members say. They might just be trying to discourage you because they don't want it. And they may not even understand what you mean by RV park. They might be thinking mobile home park, so you gotta really always ask deeper questions, always qualify, always research the information yourself. If somebody tells you you can't do something, will you send me the code that says I can't, or a reference to the code that explains this so I can research it. So always do your own due diligence, always research the code, and always understand what your options are, and then understand the fight. So if there's going to be opposition to your project, first off, why is that? Sometimes people are just afraid of what they don't understand, and some people just don't like change. So sometimes it takes a while to get people's like RV park. They might be seeing mobile home park. So you got to make sure they understand what you're talking about. Oh man, this is going to be great. It's going to be lakes and, resort, and people are going to come here and it's going to generate, revenues for the economy. It's going to look beautiful. We're going to have a little store. So, sometimes you got to paint a vision of what it is you mean. And then if people are just flat out opposed to it, then you got to decide, okay, do I want to go down this path and what's that going to take? Because it's going to be hearings, this, that, and the other. And, as developers, we have to have thick skin, right? We're the evil developers. All we care about is money and all that, right? So you're going to have a target on your back anyways. And then you have land use attorneys that you can just send in to do the work for you. So you don't have to worry about that when it comes to rezoning and getting approvals. But always do your own homework. Always research the code yourself. When somebody tells you what you can or can't do, so that you've got evidence, you see it in writing, and always question, always never assume anything, always question everything and dig deeper, ask deeper questions. The other board members are going to be opposed to that. You'll never get that approved. Why is that? Well, Sally over here, da, 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 da. Tell me more about that. Well, her brother Hank, and da, 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 da. Well, why did that happen? So always go deeper, always ask, and then you can find true motivation, what's behind it, and that's how you solve problems. That works in negotiations, by the way, too. Yeah, I mean, that's what builders and developers do. We serve the market. So as the market changes and evolves, it used to be the McMansion, prior to 2008 and 9, and then everybody downscaled after 2008 and 9, and the house sizes shrank. And, then they started trending upward as interest rates went down, and we had the pandemic, and everybody was going for bigger places, because they needed home office space, they needed homeschooling space. So trends always shift. And, one of the biggest mistakes developers will make is they'll do what they think the market wants, or they'll do what they want instead of what is the market asking for, right? So you always want to go fill that demand in the market, until you're at a point where it doesn't matter. You just want to do this project, this passion project. You don't care what the market wants. You just want to build this thing. As long as you got the resources, you don't have to rely on a sale, and you're just doing something you want to do. You're an artist. You just want to put your art out there. That's fine. But if you're if you want to make a living and you need to make a living, you got to give the market what it's already asking for, right? So if you've got, you're at a baseball stadium, everybody wants hot dogs, you don't come in with a chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
Everybody wants hot dogs. All
No,
you gotta do is monitor what are the big builders doing, because they know they're spending lots of money doing the studies. They got people coming in every day. So one is, as a developer, I always talk to top realtors on a regular basis, commercial and residential. So I know
hmm
what the demand is, what buyers are looking for, what the market's looking for. I always watch what the big builders are doing because they're in front of it. In those markets, what the trends are, what the fixtures are, furnishings, things like that. House, that there's trends on house, in terms of finishers, furnishings, and fixtures and color palettes, and the gray. Gray is the new whatever. You know what I mean? Who would have thought gray
Yeah.
would have been the color? So that's
Yeah.
where you stay ahead of the trends and these types of things, is by talking to other people, doing the research and demographics. That's Bureau of Labor Statistics. And yeah, the millennials are the big group that's moving up, the biggest demographic right now, that are becoming home buyers, right? You live in an apartment, you date, you have kids, you buy a home, then you retire, you downsize. So right now, that's the biggest segment moving up. We do have baby boomers and the older generation that ultimately will exit this world, but not enough of them fast enough to really affect the housing market. You could lose them all right now, and you would probably still be able to absorb that market. Yeah, it's a big demand in a lot of markets. So, again, you got to know your market. But yeah, South Florida is an area where it's becoming more popular. And, there's more big communities being done, built for rent. So there is a demand for that. Some people would rather rent than own. Multifamily is just more efficient. You can get more units under one roof on less property, whereas single family is horizontal apartments. So it's all spread out. So it's less efficient. That's why that hasn't been a thing in the past at scale like it is now. And there's more and more institutional capital coming into that space. So you're going to see more and more of that happening because it is need. I mean, there's a lot of people that would love a house that can't buy one, bad credit, no down payment, whatever. So it's serving a need, a big need out there, for a lot of different people. And again, there's people that just don't want to own, for whatever reason. So, that could be a great model. It could be a great space, but it's just not as efficient, in every market. If you're renting, a senior citizen is going to exit wherever they're coming from. They're going to sell their house and then they're going to rent, So, yeah, I mean, you could do an age restricted community where it's just rentals, So you have the villages in Florida, but people buy there. But sure, I mean, you could do an age restricted community or a senior living, community that's just houses. There are already several of them out there where it's kind of a mixed use, where they might have a building that, has the, memory care and more, of those types of, facilities. And then they have cottages as well. So, there's a lot of, senior living communities that are already like that. They kind of have a mixture. Then there's people that are doing, co-living houses where they'll buy a house and they'll put, seniors in each of the rooms, and the seniors kind of share, the space there. So senior living houses that are just, multiple bedrooms under one roof. So there's a lot of different ways in the senior living niche, to do that. And there's huge demand for it. Yeah, there's, that's a huge niche. You just got to make sure that, you're in an area where there is a population, of seniors, and that's where they want to be. Yeah, so I'm not sure about natural resources in and of themselves. I mean, the ultimate hedge against inflation is real estate. That's been the primary store of wealth over time in history. Gold's kind of peaking. I'm not sure I buy into this $4,000 gold narrative, but traditionally gold has been a good store of value. There is no hedge against inflation. You just can't hedge inflation. But what you want to talk about is store of value, in assets that can beat out inflation. Hedging is different than storing value. So for me, it's always been real estate, maybe precious metals, silver, copper, things like that. But it's like anything else. I mean, if you're buying at the peak of the market, markets are cyclical, right? Demand cycles. So you just got to make sure you're getting it at the right time. But to buy at any given point in time, isn't always the best strategy. You got to make sure you're buying in the cycles.